Daeho Kim stepped off the transport ship and looked around Nexus Station. The massive space station hung in the void between star systems like a giant metal flower. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many arms. Some ships looked like smooth eggs, others had sharp edges like knives. A few glowed with strange lights that hurt to look at directly. This was his first time seeing aliens up close. Back on Earth, everyone knew they existed now. But most humans had never actually met one. Daeho had spent the last 3 months studying alien cultures and languages. He knew the basic rules. Don't stare. Don't touch without asking. Try not to breathe too loudly around the insect-like ones. He carried a simple travel bag and wore his best diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric covered most of his body, but it could not hide everything. His hands showed old scars. More scars ran along his neck and disappeared under his collar. His face had a long mark that went from his left ear to his jaw. Daeho had been a soldier for 15 years before becoming a diplomat. He had fought in wars that most people never heard about. The scars were reminders of those fights. He did not like talking about them. The security checkpoint ahead buzzed with activity. Creatures he had only seen in training videos moved around doing their jobs. The tall, thin ones with blue skin were called Luminar. They moved like they were dancing even when they walked. The bug-like creatures with 4 arms were Vextar. They made clicking sounds when they talked. A human woman stood near the security desk. She looked to be in her 30s with short black hair and sharp eyes. She wore a uniform that marked her as station security. This had to be Heejin Park, the security chief he had read about in his briefing files. Daeho walked toward the checkpoint. He placed his bag on the scanner belt and stepped into the body scanner. This was routine. He had gone through similar machines hundreds of times at airports and military bases. The machine hummed. Then it started beeping. The beeping got faster and louder. Red lights began flashing all around the checkpoint. An alarm started wailing. Every alien in the area stopped what they were doing and turned to look at him. "Step out of the scanner, please," said a mechanical voice. Daeho stepped out, hands visible and empty. He had learned long ago to stay calm when security systems got excited. Usually it was just a mistake. Heejin Park ran over from the security desk. Her boots clicked on the metal floor. "What's the problem?" she asked the scanner operator, a Vextar with bright green shell markings. The Vextar's 4 arms moved in different directions as it worked the controls. Its clicking sounds got faster and more urgent. "Scanner is very upset," it said in broken human language. Many warnings. Many bad readings. More security personnel gathered around. A tall Luminar guard moved closer, its body glowing with a soft blue light. 2 more Vextar arrived, their clicking filling the air like angry insects. "Sir, I need you to stand very still," Heejin said to Daeho. "The scanner is picking up something unusual." A large screen near the checkpoint lit up. It showed an outline of Daeho's body, but something was wrong. The image was covered in red marks. Dozens of them. They covered his arms, chest, back, and legs. Each red mark pulsed like a heartbeat. The Vextar security chief, a large creature with silver markings, clicked rapidly at the screen. "These marks," it said. "Not normal. Not from normal weapons." The Luminar guard's glow got brighter. When these beings got nervous or scared, they lit up like lamps. "I have never seen such patterns," it said in a voice like singing crystal. "The energy signatures are ancient." More aliens gathered to look at the screen. Daeho stood quietly in the middle of it all. He kept his face blank, showing no emotion. Inside, though, he felt tired. He had hoped this day would never come. Heejin stared at the screen, then at him. "These scars," she said quietly. "What caused them?" Before Daeho could answer, the scanner's computer voice spoke again. But this time it sounded different. More careful, almost respectful. "Running deep analysis," the voice said. "Cross-referencing with Galactic Threat Database. Please wait." The checkpoint fell silent except for the humming of machines. Even the clicking Vextar stopped making noise. Everyone waited. The computer spoke again. "Analysis complete. Scars match energy patterns from deity-class combat encounters. Warning. These injury types have only been recorded in battles with god-tier entities." The silence got deeper. Several aliens stepped back from Daeho. The Luminar guard's glow turned from blue to white. Then the computer asked its question. "Subject classification uncertain. Scars indicate combat with deity-class entity. Please confirm. Have you engaged and survived battle with a god-tier being?" Heejin's face went pale. She knew her galactic history. In all the records kept by the Galactic Council, Only 3 species had ever fought beings classified as gods. Those battles had happened thousands of years ago. All 3 of those species were now extinct. The Vextar security chief's clicking became very quiet and fast. This was how they sounded when they were afraid. "Sir," Hae-jin said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to ask you to come with me. We need to talk. Right now." Daeho nodded slowly. He had known this conversation would happen someday. He just wished it could have waited a little longer. "Before we go," he said quietly, "you should probably call your diplomatic staff, and maybe your military commander. They're going to want to hear this too." The alarm kept wailing as more security personnel arrived. Word was already spreading through the station's communication systems. Within minutes, beings from a dozen different worlds would know that a human had arrived at Nexus Station. A human with scars that suggested he had fought a god and lived to tell about it. Daeho picked up his travel bag and followed Hee-jin toward the security offices. Behind them, aliens whispered in their various languages. The same question was being asked in clicking sounds, crystal chimes, and electronic buzzes. What kind of species fights gods and survives? And what did it mean for the rest of the galaxy? Sang-Woo Lee was in the middle of reviewing trade agreements when his communication device started buzzing. The device kept buzzing even after he tried to ignore it. Finally, he picked it up. "Sir, you need to get to security level 5 right now," came the voice of his assistant. "It's about Captain Kim." Sang-Woo dropped his papers and ran. He had been friends with Daeho Kim for 20 years. They had served together in the military before Sang-Woo became a diplomat. If Daeho was in trouble, it was probably serious trouble. The security level was crowded with beings from many different worlds. Sang-Woo had never seen so many different species in one place. There were the tall, thin Luminar with their glowing blue skin. Several Vextar clicked nervously in the corners. A group of beings that looked like walking crystals stood near the main door. In the center of it all sat Daeho at a metal table. He looked calm, but Sang-Woo knew his friend well enough to see the tension in his shoulders. "What's going on?" Sang-Woo asked Hae-jin Park. "Your friend has some very interesting scars," she said. "The kind that suggest he's fought things that shouldn't exist." Before Sang-Woo could ask more questions, the main door opened. A being floated into the room and everyone else stepped back to make space. High Arbiter Velthanis was ancient even by alien standards. Its species, the Eternal Conclave, had been keeping peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. Velthanis looked like a living shadow wrapped in silver light. When it spoke, its words appeared as text on translation screens around the room. "I have come to question the human," the text read. "The implications of his condition require immediate investigation." Ginny Choi pressed herself against the back wall. She was a scientist studying alien biology, and she had never been this close to such important beings. Her hands shook as she activated her recording device. Velthanis floated closer to Daeho. "Human, your scars tell a story. They speak of battle with forces that exist beyond normal space and time. Explain." Daeho looked up at the floating being. "I was a soldier. Soldiers get scars." "Not these scars," came the reply on the translation screen. "These marks were made by weapons that channel the power of creation itself. Only 3 species in galactic history have encountered such forces. All 3 species are now extinct." The room got very quiet. Even the clicking Vextar stopped making noise. "The beings you call gods," Velthanis continued, "are not gods as your species might understand them. They are entities of pure force that exist across multiple dimensions. They can unmake matter with a thought. They can erase entire star systems from existence." Min Ho-yoon, who had been watching from near the door, stepped forward. As a cultural attaché, he had studied the history of God-class entities. The stories were terrifying. "In the recorded history of our galaxy," Min-ho said, "God-class entities have destroyed 47 star systems. They consume worlds and use the energy to grow stronger. The last recorded encounter was 8,000 years ago." Daeho remained silent. "Human," Velthanis pressed, "your world was recently upgraded from primitive to candidate status for council membership. This upgrade happened very suddenly. Why?" "You would have to ask the council," Daeho said. "I am asking you. What happened on Earth 5 years ago?" The question hung in the air. Sang-Woo felt his stomach drop. 5 years ago was when Daeho had disappeared for 8 months. When he came back, he had changed. The old scars were healed, but new ones had taken their place. Worse ones. "Some military operations are classified," Daeho said finally. Velthanis's silver light grew brighter. Human, we have detected energy signatures around your solar system that match God-class encounters. Your star still bears the dimensional scarring that such battles leave behind. Something came to your world. Something that should have destroyed you all. The alien beings in the room began making their species sounds of fear. Clicking, chiming, buzzing. They all understood what this meant. But you are here, Velthanis continued. Your world still exists. Your species still lives. This should be impossible. Deho looked around the room at all the aliens staring at him. He saw fear in their various eyes, but also something else. Hope, maybe, or hunger for an answer that might save them all someday. It came to Earth, he said quietly. We stopped it. The room exploded in sounds. Every species present started talking at once in their own languages. The translation screens could not keep up with all the different conversations. Velthanis raised part of itself, and silence returned. How many of you survived the encounter? 3. Out of how many? Deho was quiet for a long time. 12 went in. 3 came out. Jinny Choi felt her legs go weak. She had studied the theoretical effects of God-class combat on biological systems. The survival rate should have been 0. The others, Velthanis asked, what happened to them? They died saving everyone else, Deho said. His voice carried pain that went deeper than his physical scars. Sang-woo stepped closer to his friend. Deho, what aren't you telling us? Deho looked up at him. For just a moment, his calm mask slipped. Sang-woo saw something in his friend's eyes that scared him. It was the look of someone who had seen the end of everything and somehow lived to remember it. We didn't just fight it, Sang-woo. We hunted it. We followed it into its own dimension, where it was strongest. We killed it there, in a place where reality works differently. The room fell silent again. The process changed us, Deho continued. The 3 of us who came back. We're not entirely human anymore. We exist partially outside normal time and space. We heal from wounds that should kill us. We age differently, and we can sense when more of them are coming. Velthanis floated closer. More of them? They're attracted to each other, Deho explained. When one dies, others feel it across the dimensions. They come to investigate, or to feed on what's left. The High Arbiter's silver light began pulsing rapidly. You believe another entity is approaching? I don't believe it, I know it. And this one is worse than what we faced before. The alien beings in the room began talking again, but quieter this time. Fearful whispers instead of excited chatter. Hai-Jin Park stepped forward. How much time do we have? Deho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they seemed to look through the walls of the station, through space itself, to something moving in the darkness between stars. Less than 2 years, he said. Maybe less than 1. Velthanis's light dimmed to almost nothing. In 8,000 years of keeping galactic peace, it had never faced a crisis like this. We must contact the full council immediately, it said. If what you say is true, every species in the galaxy is in danger. Deho nodded. That's why Earth sent me here. Not for trade talks or cultural exchange. We need to prepare for war, all of us together. The room remained silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had not come to join galactic civilization as students or junior partners. They had come as the only species that knew how to fight gods, and they were bringing word that another god was on its way. Jinny Choi could not sleep. She kept thinking about what Dae-ho Kim had said in the interrogation room. 3 humans had survived a battle with a god-class entity. This should have been impossible according to everything she knew about biology and physics. She sat in her small laboratory aboard Nexus Station, surrounded by screens displaying human medical data. Getting access to Earth's military records had not been easy, but Jinny had contacts in the scientific community. Some information could be traded for research findings. What she found made her stomach turn. Project Titan Shield had been classified at the highest levels of Earth's military. The files she could access were heavily edited, with large sections completely blacked out. But even the small pieces she could read painted a terrifying picture. 12 volunteers had been selected from Earth's special forces. They had undergone months of experimental treatments that changed their bodies at the genetic level. The treatments were designed to let humans survive in environments where normal physics did not work. Jinny pulled up the medical scans. The before and after images showed dramatic changes. The volunteers' bone density had increased by 40%. Their nervous systems had been rewired to process information faster than normal human brains could handle. Most disturbing of all, their DNA showed markers that suggested they existed partially outside normal space-time. A soft knock on her laboratory door made her jump. "Come in," she called. Hee-Jin Park entered, looking as tired as Jin-ae felt. "Working late?" "I can't stop thinking about this," Jin-ae said, gesturing at her screens. "Look at this data. The humans who went through Project Titan Shield were essentially turned into something new. Something that could survive contact with entities from other dimensions." Hee-Jin sat down and looked at the displays. What kind of survival rate did they expect? According to these psychological evaluations, the volunteers knew they might not come back human. Or come back at all. They volunteered anyway. Meanwhile, 3 levels up, Yoonji Kim was having her own sleepless night. As a communications officer, she monitored all the message traffic that flowed through Nexus Station. Most of it was routine trade negotiations and diplomatic chatter. But tonight was different. Encrypted messages were flying between the home worlds of every major species in the Galactic Council. The news about Daeho Kim had spread faster than she had thought possible. Every government wanted to know the same things. How had humanity survived a God-class encounter? What other secrets were they hiding? And most importantly, could they be trusted? Some of the messages worried her. The Nexor Empire, a military alliance of several aggressive species, was discussing the possibility of a preemptive strike against Earth. Their reasoning was simple. If humans could kill gods, they could probably kill anyone. Other species were more interested in forming alliances. The Peaceful Worlds Coalition wanted to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council in exchange for protection. The Scientific Union wanted to study human biology to understand how they had achieved the impossible. Yoonji printed out the most important messages and prepared to take them to her supervisor. But first, she had to make a secure call to Earth. Her government needed to know that diplomatic solutions might not be possible. In the station's diplomatic quarters, Sang-Woo Lee sat across from his old friend. They were alone for the first time since Daeho had arrived at the station. "Tell me what really happened," Sang-Woo said. "Not the official version. I want to know what you went through." Daeho was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Older, sadder. "We called it the Void Sovereign. It had already destroyed 14 star systems by the time it reached Earth. Our scientists detected it when it was still 6 months away. Why didn't Earth ask for help from the Galactic Council? We tried. The Council's response was to evacuate their diplomatic staff and write off our solar system as lost. They had fought God-class entities before. They knew how it always ended." Sang-Woo felt anger rise in his chest. "They abandoned us? Can you blame them? Every species that had ever fought one of these things had gone extinct. The smart move was to let it consume Earth and hope it moved on to a different part of the galaxy." Daeho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, alien ships moved through the darkness like glowing insects. "So we decided to handle it ourselves," he continued. "Our best scientists worked for 4 months straight to understand what we were facing. The Void Sovereign existed in 11 dimensions at once. It fed on the energy that holds matter together. When it entered a star system, it would begin unmaking everything from the atomic level up. How did you fight something like that? We couldn't fight it in normal space. It was too powerful there. We had to go to its home dimension, where it kept its core consciousness. But human bodies can't survive in that kind of environment. So they changed us." Sang-Woo looked at his friend's scarred hands. "The treatments made you into something else. Something that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Something that could survive exposure to the raw forces of creation. But the process, it hurt, Sang-Woo. It changed us in ways that go deeper than these scars." "What happened to the 9 who didn't come back?" Daeho closed his eyes. "The battle lasted 3 days in that other dimension. Time moves differently there. For us, it felt like months of constant fighting. The Void Sovereign was not just powerful. It was intelligent. It knew we were trying to kill it, and it fought back with everything it had. How did you finally stop it?" Kitai figured out its weakness. The entity drew power from a connection to something even bigger, something that existed at the center of all dimensions. To kill it, we had to cut that connection. But doing so required one of us to stay behind and hold the dimensional gateway closed from the inside. Sang-Woo felt cold. Kitai stayed. All 9 of them stayed. They knew someone had to make sure the gateway never opened again. If the Void Sovereign's master ever found a way to Earth, Daeho's voice trailed off. The three of us who came back, we carry part of that gateway inside us now. We're living seals that keep the path to Earth closed. If we die, the connection reopens. Sang-woo understood now why his friend had seemed so different when he returned from that mission. He was not just carrying physical scars. He was carrying the weight of being humanity's permanent guardian against cosmic horrors. And now another one is coming, Sang-woo said. Yes. But this one is different. The Void Sovereign was a hunter that consumed worlds to grow stronger. This new entity? It doesn't eat matter. It erases it from existence entirely. Complete and total annihilation. Not even memories of the destroyed worlds remain. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Sang-woo checked his communication device. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session, he said. They want to hear your full testimony. Daeho nodded. Then it's time to tell them everything. About the war that's coming, about what it will cost to win, and about the choice they'll have to make. What choice? Whether to trust humanity to lead the fight or try to handle it themselves. Daeho's scarred face showed no emotion. Because this time running away won't be an option. The silence doesn't just destroy star systems. It erases entire galaxies. Outside the window, alien ships continued their peaceful dance through space. None of them knew that their entire civilization might soon cease to exist, along with every memory that it had ever existed at all. The investigation was over. Now came the hard part. Convincing a galaxy to follow the species they feared most into a war against the impossible. Yujin Han stepped off her transport ship with 5 armed guards behind her. As Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, she had dealt with difficult diplomatic situations before. But never anything like this. Word had reached Earth that Daeho Kim's identity had been discovered. Within hours, every major species in the galaxy was demanding answers about humanity's true capabilities. Some wanted to form alliances. Others were mobilizing fleets for war. The situation was about to explode into galactic conflict, and Yujin had less than a day to prevent it. She found Sang-woo Lee waiting for her at the docking bay. His normally calm face showed signs of stress. How bad is it? She asked as they walked toward the diplomatic quarters. The Nexor Empire has moved 12 battle fleets to the edge of Earth's solar system, Sang-woo replied. They're calling it a protective blockade, but everyone knows what it really is. The Peaceful Worlds Coalition is demanding that we share our god-killing technology, and the Eternal Conclave wants to put Daeho in protective custody. Protective custody or prison? With them, there's not much difference. They entered a conference room where Daeho sat at a metal table. He looked tired but alert. Across from him sat representatives from 8 different species, all asking questions at the same time. Yujin took control immediately. Everyone out except council representatives, she announced. This conversation is now classified at the highest diplomatic levels. The room cleared until only the most senior aliens remained. High Arbiter Velthanis floated near the main display screen. 2 Nexor military commanders sat stiffly in their chairs, their scaled faces showing no emotion. A Peaceful Worlds representative kept making soft, worried sounds. The Galactic Council demands full disclosure, Velthanis announced through its translation system. Humanity has hidden the truth about their encounter with a god-class entity. This deception threatens galactic stability. Yujin sat down across from the alien representatives. We didn't lie to anyone. We simply didn't volunteer information that would cause panic. Panic? One of the Nexor commanders leaned forward. You fought and defeated a being that destroyed 14 star systems. That makes humanity the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Why should we not consider you a threat? Because we're not your enemy, Daeho said quietly. We're the only species that knows how to fight your enemies. A large display screen lit up showing the Galactic Council chamber. Hundreds of alien representatives from dozens of worlds filled the viewing area. This emergency session was being broadcast across the galaxy. Captain Kim, came a voice from the speakers. You will now provide full testimony about the incident referred to as the Void Sovereign encounter. Daeho stood up and faced the screen. He began speaking in a clear, steady voice. 5 years ago, our solar system was invaded by an entity our scientists designated as the Void Sovereign. It was a being of pure entropy that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its purpose was to consume the energy that holds matter together, growing stronger with each star system it destroyed. The alien representatives in the council chamber began making various sounds of distress. They had heard rumors, but never the full details. The entity was approximately 15 kilometers in diameter in our dimension, but its true size was impossible to measure. It could unmake matter at the molecular level with focused thought. Its mere presence in a star system would eventually cause stellar collapse. Images appeared on the screen showing Earth's solar system during the invasion. The space around Earth looked wrong, as if reality itself was breaking down. Our military forces attempted conventional resistance. Nuclear weapons, kinetic bombardment, focused energy attacks. Nothing worked. The entity absorbed all forms of energy and used them to grow stronger. Deho paused and looked around the room. Even the normally emotionless Nexor commanders were paying close attention. Our scientists determined that the only way to stop it was to attack its core consciousness, which existed in a parallel dimension. But human biology cannot survive in that environment. We needed to be changed. So Young Park entered the room at that moment. She was a military psychologist who had studied the Titan Shield survivors for 3 years. She carried data files containing the complete medical records. The volunteers underwent a process that altered them at the genetic and quantum level. So Young explained to the council. Their bodies were modified to exist partially outside normal space-time. The survival rate for the procedure was estimated at 30%. All 12 volunteers knew they would likely die. Deho continued. They underwent the treatments anyway. When the modifications were complete, we entered the entity's home dimension. The screen showed sensor readings from that mission. The data looked like chaos, reality breaking down into mathematical equations that hurt to look at. The battle lasted 72 hours in our time frame. In the parallel dimension, we experienced approximately 6 months of constant combat. The Void Sovereign was not just powerful. It was intelligent and it fought with purpose. Min Ho-yoon, who had been quietly taking notes, raised his hand.
Captain, can you explain how the entity was finally defeated?
Deho's expression darkened. The entity drew its power from a connection to something larger, a source that existed at the center of all dimensional reality. To kill it, we had to cut that connection permanently, but maintaining the dimensional seal required constant energy input from human consciousness. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. 9 of our team members chose to stay behind. They merged their consciousness with the dimensional barrier, becoming living seals that prevent the pathway to Earth from ever reopening. They are still there, keeping us safe. Several alien representatives in the council chamber began making distressed sounds. The concept of voluntary sacrifice on this scale was alien to most species. The 3 survivors returned to normal space, but we were permanently changed. We exist partially in both dimensions now. We age differently, heal from fatal wounds, and possess intuitive understanding of dimensional physics. So Young stepped forward with her data files. The survivors show remarkable abilities. They can detect dimensional distortions across vast distances. Their reaction times are 50 times faster than normal humans. Most importantly, they seem to be immune to the reality-altering effects that God-class entities use as weapons. This brings us to the current crisis, Yujin announced. Captain Kim and the other survivors have detected signs of another God-class entity approaching our galaxy. The council chamber erupted in panic. Sounds from dozens of different species. This new entity is far more dangerous than the Void Sovereign. Deho continued when the noise died down. We call it the silence. It doesn't consume matter or energy. It erases things from existence entirely, completely and permanently. When it destroys a world, even the memory that the world ever existed disappears. Belthanis' silver light pulsed rapidly. How much time do we have? 18 months at most. Maybe less. The Nexor commander, who had been most aggressive earlier, suddenly looked less confident. Can it be stopped? We believe so. But not by one species fighting alone. This will require every civilization in the galaxy working together, and it will require trusting humanity to lead the military effort. The challenge was now clear. The galaxy had to choose between fear of humanity's power and trust in their experience fighting cosmic horrors. The mathematics are simple, Deho concluded. Fight together and some of us might survive. Fight separately and we all cease to exist, along with any memory that we ever existed at all. The voting began immediately. Each species had to decide alliance or extinction. On the main screen, representatives from hundreds of worlds cast their votes while long-range sensors continued to detect the approaching distortions that marked the Silence's journey toward their galaxy. Time was running out. and the choice would determine whether galactic civilization survived the next 2 years. The voting had been going on for 6 hours. On the main display screen, numbers flickered as each species cast their decision. Some voted quickly. Others took time to discuss with their homeworlds. A few changed their votes multiple times. Jae-hun Ko stood near the back of the council chamber, watching the process with growing concern. As Earth's military liaison, he understood tactics and timing better than most. Every minute spent debating was a minute closer to the Silence's arrival. The current vote count showed a galaxy divided almost equally. 43 species supported forming a unified defense under human leadership. 39 opposed it, preferring to handle the threat using traditional council military structures. 12 species remained undecided. "This is taking too long," Jae-hun muttered to Yoo Jin-han. The ambassador nodded, but kept watching the screen. "Fear makes people careful. They're afraid of us, but they're also afraid of extinction. It's not an easy choice." Near the front of the chamber, Dae-ho Kim sat quietly while alien representatives argued around him. Some species wanted more details about human military capabilities. Others demanded guarantees that humanity would not use their god-killing abilities against council members after the crisis ended. High Arbiter Valthanis floated in the center of the debate, its silver light pulsing with what might have been frustration. "The entity approaches while we discuss politics," it announced through the translation system. "Perhaps we should focus on survival first and trust second." A Nexor commander stood up, his scaled face showing anger. "Easy words from a species that lives in energy form. You cannot be killed by conventional weapons. The rest of us are vulnerable to human power. And all of us are vulnerable to the silence," Dae-ho said without standing. His quiet voice somehow carried through the entire chamber. "While you argue about whether to trust us, it continues moving toward our galaxy. In 18 months, maybe less, none of this will matter." Ji-hoon Nam hurried into the chamber carrying data tablets. As the station's strategic analyst, he had been running calculations on the approaching threat. His face showed the kind of fear that came from understanding mathematics. "I need to address the council," Ji-hoon announced. "We have new sensor data." The chamber fell quiet as Ji-hoon connected his data to the main display. Star charts appeared showing the outer edge of their galaxy. Red markers indicated detected dimensional distortions. "The silence is moving faster than we initially calculated," Ji-hoon reported. "It has accelerated its approach. At current speed, it will reach the outer systems in 14 months. A wave of panic sounds swept through the chamber. Clicking, chiming, buzzing, and electronic screeching filled the air as dozens of species reacted to the news. Furthermore, Ji-hoon continued, "Our analysis suggests that conventional defensive strategies will be completely ineffective. The entity operates by erasing matter from existence at the quantum level. Energy shields, armor plating, and kinetic weapons will simply cease to exist when they come into contact with it." The Peaceful World's representative, a being that looked like a walking flower, asked the question everyone was thinking. What defensive strategies would be effective? Ji-hoon looked at Dae-ho, who nodded permission to continue. According to the data from the Void Sovereign encounter, the only effective weapons against God-class entities are those that operate on dimensional frequencies beyond normal spacetime. The humans who survived Project Titan Shield can create such weapons because they exist partially, outside our reality. But there are only 3 of them, pointed out a crystalline Luminar delegate. "True," Dae-ho said, standing up for the first time in hours. "But we can train others. The process that changed us can be adapted for other species. The survival rate will be low, but volunteers could be prepared for dimensional combat." The chamber erupted in debate again. The idea of voluntarily undergoing the same treatments that had killed 9 out of 12 humans terrified most species. Valthanis raised part of itself for attention. "How many volunteers would be needed?" "Hundreds," Dae-ho replied. "Maybe thousands. The silence is larger than the Void Sovereign. Fighting it will require multiple strike teams attacking from different dimensional angles simultaneously." "And if we refuse?" asked the Nexor commander. "If we choose to face this threat without human leadership?" Ji-hoon pulled up tactical projections on the main screen. Red lines showed the predicted path of destruction as the silence moved through the galaxy. "Total extinction within 3 years," Ji-hoon reported. "Not just death. Complete erasure from existence. No trace that galactic civilization ever existed." The voting numbers began changing faster. Some species that had been opposed to human leadership switched their positions. Others remained stubborn, preferring extinction to submission. Then the emergency alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout Nexus Station. The chamber's speakers crackled with urgent announcements in a dozen different languages. Yoonji Kim ran into the chamber, her communication officer uniform showing sweat stains from running. Long-range sensors have detected a massive dimensional distortion at the galaxy's edge. Something big just entered our space. Every being in the chamber turned to look at Daeho. His scarred face had gone pale. "That's impossible," he said. "We calculated 14 months." Ji-hoon was already pulling up the sensor data. The display showed space itself twisting at the galaxy's outer rim. Stars were disappearing, not exploding or burning out but simply ceasing to exist. "It's not the main entity," Daeho realized. "It's a scout probe. The silence sends them ahead to map target areas." "How long until the main entity arrives?" Yujin demanded. Daeho closed his eyes and seemed to look beyond the walls of the station, beyond space itself, into dimensions where time moved differently. 6 months, he said quietly. Maybe less. The voting stopped. Numbers frozen on the screen as every species realized that theoretical debates had become immediate survival questions. "We need a decision now," Jae-hun announced. "Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now." Velthanis's silver light flared brighter than anyone had ever seen. "Emergency powers are now in effect. The Galactic Council grants temporary military authority to the human delegation. All species will contribute resources and volunteers to the defense effort." Some representatives tried to object, but their voices were drowned out by the continuing alarms. On the sensor displays, the scout probe continued its work, erasing entire star systems as it mapped the galaxy's structure. "What do you need from us?" the Nexor commander asked Daeho. "Everything," Daeho replied. "Every ship, every weapon, every volunteer willing to undergo dimensional modification. And we need it all ready in 5 months. Is 5 months enough time?" Daeho looked around the chamber at the dozens of alien species that had just agreed to trust humanity with their survival. "It has to be. Because when the main entity arrives, we get one chance to stop it. If we fail, no one will even remember that we tried." The chamber began emptying as representatives rushed to contact their homeworlds. Within hours, ships would be departing for every corner of the galaxy, carrying word that the greatest war in galactic history was about to begin. Sang-woo walked over to his old friend. "Can we really do this? Can we save them all?" Daeho watched the sensor displays showing the destruction at the galaxy's edge. More stars disappeared every minute. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we're the only species that's ever killed a god. If anyone can do this, it's us. And if we can't, then in 6 months it won't matter anyway. The silence will erase us all, and no one will remember that we ever existed to try." Outside Nexus Station, ships from 100 worlds began gathering for humanity's first war as leaders of galactic civilization. The greatest test of the species that refused to surrender was about to begin, and time was running out.